Welcome back to the channel, and today a really quick video. This is a first impressions video of the brand new Kingsong S16 and S16 Pro. Now we do have both variations in at the shop, and the main differences are the motor and the battery. The differences being 2,800 watt motor versus the 3,000 watt in the Pro, and the GB cells, Samsung GB cells, versus the Samsung 50S cells in the Pro model. And with those two differences, you do get a higher discharge in the cell, and you do get a 60 kilometer top speed versus 50 kilometer in the non-Pro model. But as I said, this is going to be a really fast video, a first impressions video as such. We will do some riding, we'll talk about that. When you take it out of the box, you're met with this. It comes with the Velcro already on the side, and the pads are loose in the box. The pads are a two-piece, so you got top and bottom. When you lift it out, you turn it on, it comes in transportation mode. So my very first tip is have the Kingsong app ready, because when you turn it on, it instantly, gives you about 5 seconds, the alarm will start going off. Now the first thing we notice when we turn this on is how nicely it boots up. You're met with a really nice colorful light display and a really cool sound. Let me see if I can get the sound on my microphone. So really similar to the S19, and it just lets you know that the wheel is now turned on and ready to ride. All those sounds can be customized in the app. You can get rid of them completely. You can change them to something even more fun. It's up to you, the owner. You've got that nice big spring at the back. You've got your rebound or your dampening control there, so you can make that plus or minus, so soften up the ride depending on how you want to ride your wheel. Built-in kickstand, which is really nice, and all these nice exposed struts, LEDs, speakers, and some really nice simple spiked pedals. Now these aren't super grippy, and they're not super long, but they do a good job. I'm size 11 US, and you'll see how my feet fit on them when we go for a ride shortly. Really nice simple headlights, again adjustable just like the S22, up, down, and controlled by the power button under here. So high, medium, and off. And this tire, while we're down there, I have not seen this tire on another EUC, and I can tell you, all of us jumped on it and all were surprised at how nimble this tire is. This is so much fun to ride, and I think if you've got a young kid or a teenager who wants to learn but they want some suspension, this could be a really good choice, specifically with this tire on, because it's easy to turn. You know, remember with the S22, the original knobby tire, it was a nightmare. Even the S19 knobby tire is not a nice tire to turn on. This turns like that, or feels like that original Nikola tire, or the original tire on the batch one of the T4. It just carves beautifully, and it's a pleasure to ride. Now while I've got the wheel balancing, I want to show you the lift switch, because as you remember, the S19 was under here, and it was a little bit of a pain because you instinctively grab that and it would, you know, drop down. They've moved it to the back, it's under here, and it is again a touch panel. So there's no button, you don't feel any click. You literally put your fingers there and it disengages the motor, and you can lower it onto that included stand. Again, really nice. Build quality, it looks like it's built really nicely. Nice mudguard, it's got a little bit of a gap, which is good. Sometimes we see a gap's a little bit too small and you can get stuff stuck up in there. But this one here, you've got probably about 11 to 12 mils of gap between the tire and the mudguard, so that's nice to see. I already mentioned the motor, 2,800 or 3,000 watt, that's a hollow core motor. One thing to mention, the weight. I don't know if you saw our podcast, but when Kingsong first announced this, they delayed the shipping because they were changing some materials, because they had a goal to get it to that magical 28, 29 kilo number. We thought they had done it, but we were surprised when we chucked this on the scale and we saw it was reading 31 kilos. So they obviously didn't quite meet that goal they were trying to get down to. But 31 kilos for a wheel of this size, I think is still very good, and it's still really fun to ride. But of course, with every wheel, everything I've just said is kind of irrelevant unless it rides well. So let's see how it goes. We've already done I think 5 or 10 kilometers to unlock it. So we have this set almost at its max speed. The only thing we need to do now is really play with those pads and get them optimally set up, because at the moment, they're perfect for when you want to accelerate and brake. But we still need to work out the toe. It's not quite right down there yet. Now the first thing to comment on, being an 84 volt wheel, you're inclined to go a little bit easy. We all know 84 volt is on the lower spectrum of power output. This wheel seems to perform really well. I've been pushing it reasonably hard. Again, I am taking into account that it is 84 volts, but it climbs up to its max speed quite quickly, and once it gets there, it's very, very stable. The really nice thing about this S16 is the weight and how it rides. This really is a good beginner wheel. Steve and I talked about it in the podcast. We see the S16 replacing the 16X, the 16XS, the 16S as that wheel that people buy when they know they don't want to start off with a really small one, something like the V8F or the 14D, but they also don't want to go straight to an S22. This is that wheel. But yeah, so far, no complaints for what you get for $3,100 Australian. That's 47 kilometers per hour right there, and it's really stable. Really, really surprised at how stable it is at its top end speed. So this is a 60 kilometer per hour top speed. I've got it set at 50 for the beeps, and I've got it set at 55 for the pedal tilt back. I just always like to be a little bit cautious with the smaller wheels. But one thing to comment on is that I do not get any wobbles on this wheel at that high speed. You know, there are other wheels that have greater performance that I do get a little bit of a speed wobble on around that 40 mark. The S16 and S16 Pro doesn't have that problem that I've felt yet. It really just feels smooth, and all of a sudden I'm getting beeps, not realizing I'm doing 50 kilometers per hour. But that brings us to the end of this first impressions on the S16 Pro. S16, it sounded like I said F then. Really nice, fun wheel. Looks really well built, performs nicely. And again, at that 3,100, I think it is, it's a good entry-level wheel for someone who doesn't want to upgrade after a few months. You know, this wheel will last them a long time, and they'll be able to grow into it and enjoy it and really have a lot of fun on-road and off-road. I think the big selling point for this wheel is going to be its weight and its ability to do both, as I just said, on-road, off-road with that suspension. You know, you can really tailor it to your weight, to your ride style, and you can have a lot of fun. You know, the screen is really easy to read. In direct sunlight, it gets a little bit dull. The speakers, really nice quality, not as loud as the S19. I'll give you a quick demo. But that is the end of the first impressions video. There's not much more we can say until we put more miles under the wheel. If you've got any comments or questions, chuck them down below. We are planning on doing a wheel talk next week, so if we have time, we'll do our best to answer those questions in the video. If you're thinking about getting one, you're just not quite sure, and you live in Australia, give us a call, shoot us an email. If you're in Brisbane, come in, take it for a test ride. Myself, Ken, or Lucas will take you around where I've just been now so you can get a feel for it, test out that suspension in a real world environment. I hope you've enjoyed this first look at the S16. That's it, ride safe, wear a helmet, and we'll see you next time.